when we trust, so we not looking for reparation. Clarity equals transition when we left the black turn brains are so seeking. They're internally high. That underlying power, 144 will rise. While the black race stay in the dead state, the bright race stay alive, and you know why? Shit, cause we came home to the most high, yes, we came home to the most high, that's it.
The bright race of reality, we are here, raising up our community, no fear. Solar power is flowing through the atmosphere. It's only right you examine the channel out of here. There's no helping the black race, they all did. Marvelizing the beast in the forehead. There's no turning us back, we move forward now. Our only focus is on it, we will never bow. Yes, we're taking this oath, this is our pledge. Our only focus is on it, we are full-fledged. The bright ones never play games, power don't play. We focus on honest work, seeking a brighter day. We all here for this power, we don't look back. The ones really of almond will never fade the black. With the elected of almond, you better recognize the next order of almond is surely on the rise.
Truly the descendants of the almond queens, pure as spirits with the summer queens. Many with these life and we sing with these. Thankful for the day that the honors chose me. Proud for the mental chains that was broken free. And my mind can forever extend constant. And I'm a part of life's material possessions. We connect our minds with the thought stages of operations. Following this reality while focusing on honoring what the heavens store for us. When you believe that there's no way you can ever be rejected. Have your mindset forward, looking backwards, no, not never again. We are the right race, stand focused, moving to the fourth dimension. Shifting in and out like the dominated cube. While seeing full spectrums of color information. As we're connected and moving about, the whole world stops and starts to shout. Hell, amen, yep, yes indeed. We're moving at the speed of honor so righteously. Marching in the bright lines, moving on one solar accord. As the righteous elect comes together once more. Reconstructing our mind, body, souls, and ethers. Preparing righteously, Lord, order, bringing in a full fiery judgment. Burning away all the beasts and corruptions by restoring natural law, order, and stretching the flames all across the lands. We have the power key to our future plans. We all are real, our men and women. Our judgment will get this planet the soul and cleanse. Straight from the omnic beings. Yep, it is the ROM is where we stand. Our lift beneath us. Yep, we are the omens. This is our planet and we're coming to take it.
solve it. Regardless what comes, I'll solve it. There's a brighter way, there are brighter days. Blow your brighter ways, stand and fight the day. I won't give up. Keep looking up. Do whatever it takes. For my family's sake. Everybody say, there's a brighter day. And a brighter day. Don't make the mistake. And fade away. We more than great. I'm more than fate. We'll be on your way. There's no other way to the future. A brighter day, a brighter way.
I ain't got time to break this water.
Soldier, I've been soldier, but in the world, my body's always there. Soldier, I've been soldier, but in the world, my body's always there.
It's the republic of intellect, just to be a part of this thing called that. And a continuous community, learning more about each other, rising up in unity. But this ain't nothing that ain't new to me, it's next to me. Definitely is the best to me, yes, it definitely. The death on my old ways, breaking off the chains of my soul into a bright race. This is nothing that can be replaced. No, I didn't come to have a chance to get stay. No, I will never ever fade. It's an inner soldier of honor in his community.
Soldier, I've been soldier, but in the world, my body's always there. Soldier, I've been soldier, but in the world, my body's always there.
I am a soldier of the army of the Lord, moving forward by the mighty omnivores. This serious business we got for our community. This serious business we living for this unity. The bright race raising up the brighter legacy. Bright power, ushering its supremacy. We're spoken down, must be held as future prophecy. By the power of army, we will hold the power seat. We tuned into MENTELLECT, and yes, we heard the call. We raised up the name of Amen, so the beast fall. We move as one-on-one, we are the Lord. Our minds focus steady motion towards the board.
Soldier, I've been soldier, but in the world, my body's always there. Soldier, I've been soldier, but in the world, my body's always there.
By the power of Amen, we embody the Amen beings, moving in the future with a mind of clarity as alignment. So just let me on law and order, building a foundation with them bright four corners, masterminds are stinking higher. Souls appear fire. We only here to manifest the true mind power. Channel mind as a deadly weapon. Thoughts of transmission, equal fully loaded ammunition. Soldier, I'm in soldier. I'm in soldier. I'm in soldier.
Soldier, I've been soldier, but in the world, my body's always there. Soldier, I've been soldier, but in the world, my body's always there.
Alright, we're here. A little late, but we're here nonetheless. Alright. We're here, but you know, like I said, a little late, but like I said, still, this is on time for us. This is on time for us when we, you know, when you have children, you have other things you're doing. So I like to, you know, I'm busy. I'm a busy man, so I like to do things at the last minute. Before I get into this, I want to start off in the name of Amen, by the power of Amen. In Amen we trust, in Amen we think, and in Amen we continue forward forever. Hail Amen. Hail the community. Hail us. Another High and Mighty Talks. Me, Nuben, Menkarayzz. My lovely wives are helping me, assisting me, and they're going to be taking the calls and, you know, checking everything out. You see, I got on my Indian basketball jersey, which is being sold by my company, Underlord. You want to check out, you know, Underlord Company. I also got on my Indigenous American feathered head crown. Again, I want our people to stop referring to this as a war bonnet. This is not a war bonnet. This is the Indigenous American feathered head crown, right? And it is important that we notice, and I'm going to speak on this as American Indians, because we are truly the American Indians. We are not African Americans. We are not black. We are not Negroes. I'm not speaking to you today as a so-called black man, as a so-called American, as a so-called Negro, as a so-called African American. I'm speaking to you as an American Indigenous man, one of the copper-colored races, the bronze races we refer to it, the bronze copper-colored people, the bronze men and bronze women, right? That was at a time when we once had we were in our real state of mind, our right state of mind, and our logical state of mind, where we acknowledge who and what we were and how we looked and things like that. And we didn't allow people to sit up here and define us and give us these crazy identifications, okay? Calling us black people, calling us Negroes, calling us African Americans. You know, that has to subside. We have to let that go. You can't have real growth, real evolution, real extension in your life if you're living a lie in your life. Let me just make that clear. We're not black people. Our skin is not black. We didn't come over here on no African slave ships. We didn't come over here on no transatlantic slave ships. We got to let that go. And this is why I make it a point to represent for who we truly are. The people who are calling themselves Native Americans, as I said before, they are not the real Indians. This is why they make sure in the society that they're not classified as American Indians. They're classified as Native Americans. And that's a classification that came from Caucasians who were coming over into the Americas, who were trying to align themselves with the Mongoloid Indians. And they were trying to basically put on the things that we originated, the feathered head crowns, the indigenous culture, which is really our culture, you see. But unfortunately, in this society, and like I said, this can be all proven. This is not something I'm just saying. So I said this time, I said, why is there a lot of these so-called black leaders, why are they not speaking up about our indigenous status amongst, you know, who we really are, our true identity? Why are they going along with this African American thing? But see, all this is going to be answered, and like I said, it's going to be sorted out. I want to speak tonight about the importance of the American Republic. The American Republic, of which I am a member, is about the realization of who we are as an American Indian people, as American indigenous people to this land, indigenous ethnic Americans, which is what we are. We're not African American. I'm talking about the people whose family go back past slavery. I'm talking about my people in the West Indies. You know, wonder why y'all call West Indians. Yet they tell us we're not the real Indians or the indigenous people. The people, as Dane Calloway said, the Niji people. All right, we need to stand up and represent that. I get tired of hearing, and I cringe when I hear terminologies like African American. You see, they make sure they keep that terminology alive. That is a classification that was given to us through people like Jesse Jackson, who was answering to his Caucasian bosses, who wanted to basically relabel us because they were trying to kill the American indigenous culture here that was so deeply rooted in America that that's the people who took charge, the Caucasians who took charge of the society. They just pretty much decimated the American indigenous culture, forced us to call ourselves black people, forced us to call ourselves Negroes, forced us to call ourselves African Americans. And like I said, so now they just label us that, and you've never heard a people allowing other people to label them. When the last time you heard other people telling the Italians that you something else other than Italian? They get to decide who they are. When you heard somebody telling the Jews, y'all are really, Russian and German and all that, y'all not Jews? Nobody tells these people that. Everybody gets to say who and what they are. And I got a problem with that, because the minute we put on our feathered head crowns, our indigenous American feathered head crowns, the minute we start, speaking up about our American indigenous culture, you get some pro-black idiot that comes out here and start telling us, oh, we not really the real Indians. We need to stop taking these people culture and all this other nonsense. I'm going to show you something. You ever notice when our people talk about having being American Indian or having so-called Indian blood, you ever notice that they say it with pride? They'll say, oh, I'm not black, I'm Indian. They'll say that. One of the people that was doing that, a couple of people that was doing that was the members in Wu-Tang, Old Dirty Bastard, and I think the guy RZA and all of them. They was talking about they American indigenous, American Indian stats. They said, well, we not black, we not African American, we American Indians, and we are the Shinnecock tribe. They was talking about all these tribes and stuff. But that's, let me tell you something. That is not anything, not to say it's not special, but in a way it's not special, because every so-called black person that was born here in the Americas, I'm talking about going back towards slavery, you are 9 times out of 10 American indigenous. Ain't with no Africans here in America. And so a community had to be established, a real community had to be established for the Americans, the real Americans, because even that term American belongs to us. We're the only real Americans here in America. We're the only real indigenous Americans here in America. Everybody else came from someplace else. So we had to have a community that focuses on our indigenous American status, and that is the American Republic. The American Republic is an American indigenous community. We are a bronze community, an American indigenous. We are not a black community, because like I told you before, there's no such thing as a black community. We are not a black community. We're not no African American community. We're not no Negro community. We're not taking any more of these fake terminologies and fake ideologies. We're going to be who we are, which is the American indigenous people. Our roots go back toward all you got all these indigenous tribes out here, people who are from indigenous tribes who they don't even acknowledge. The Caucasians don't acknowledge them, and the Mongoloid Indians who came over here don't acknowledge them. There's a whole bunch of American indigenous tribes here, American Indian tribes here, who are not acknowledged. Okay? They're not acknowledged at all. And why is that? They don't sit up here and they'll talk about the Sioux and the Cherokee and all. And most of those names are not even real names. Those are names that came given to them by Caucasians. Okay? A lot of these Indian tribes, these so-called Indian tribes, Native American tribes, these Native American tribes are phony. They did nothing but culture vulture off of our American indigenous heritage. We go back to the Mesoamericans, because, see, this is a thing that they don't, the historians don't tend to do. They tend not to link the American indigenous people to the real the first American indigenous people, which again is our people, the Olmecs, the real first indigenous people, the Olmecs. And we acknowledge in the American Republic our Olmec, our Aztec, our Inca, and Mayan heritage. The Mayans were the first people in North America, along with the Aztecs, and the Mongoloid Indians followed behind them, and some of them came over here as slaves, and they mixed in with our people, which is why, like I said, you have these dark-skinned, the real dark-skinned, the early Indian dark-skinned with straight hair. They was Blasians, or what you would call Blasian today, black and Asian. A lot of them mixed in with the black women, and some of the men mixed in with them, and so forth. But the culture, the heritage of American indigenous people is our culture. American Indian culture is our culture. That is the hidden culture. Okay? So when you're watching fake movies like Roots, the fake movie Roots that a lot of y'all still programmed by, because that was a heavy programming tool through this clown Alex Haley, who plagiarized and lied about this African slave trade and his family being linked up in that. You know, that book, you do know he plagiarized from a Caucasian man named Harold Corlander from his book called The African. And that guy, Harold Corlander, he made up all that stuff. He made up Kunta Kinte and all. This was all stuff they made up. So you have to have in this day and time an American indigenous man, a bronze man, which is what I refer to myself as, the real terminology of myself. Not waiting for nobody to give me no terminology. I'm not waiting for nobody telling me, oh, you see, you're African American. No, I'm not African American. We should be rejecting that term African American because we did not come from Africa. Y'all don't understand that when they call us African Americans, that's really meant to be an insult. They're not calling us African Americans because we came from Africa. They're calling us African American because they're trying to double down on this idea that they brought us here to the Americas in slavery and chains, which is a damn lie. What the people on the plantations the people that were on the plantations were prisoners of war. A lot of them were indentured service, but a lot of them were prisoners of war, where these Caucasians would be fighting with the American indigenous people, our people, and they would take our children and our women hostage. And that's how slavery got started. Slavery was a hostage situation where people were allowed to take hostages in this country and force them to work. That's what slavery was. People were allowed to go out here as slave catchers, because keep in mind the term slave catcher was making reference to the people that went around catching slaves, catching people, and free American indigenous people, catching free American indigenous people, free Indians, and putting them in slavery through battles and things like that. That's how it got started. They would catch children. So a lot of these children were born not knowing what their true heritage was. They were born generation after generation in slavery, living on plantations, being abused and whatnot, being told they were property and all this other garbage that was put in their head. And like I said, when you breed that in the minds of children and people who don't know their heritage, you get to control these people and whatnot. And that's how slavery was able to flourish. This is why they didn't want our people reading no books. They didn't want our people knowing anything, because see, how you keep a slave in control is you control what they know. You control what they learn. You see, they was always afraid of us finding out who we were as the American indigenous people. Now, why do they align us with Africans? Why are we aligned with Africans? Why are they telling that we Africans? Because look at the story, the narrative they give about the Africans, that the Africans were a people that sold their people into slavery for wine, for guns, and whatever they said, for musket guns and liquor and some stupid nonsense. And a lot of you simple-minded Negroes believe that we came by way of some Africans selling us into slavery. That's a damn lie. That is such a lie. We are prisoners of war here, just like we continue to be today. We are prisoners of war here. Okay? This is why you see the heavy concentration on keeping so-called black people down. You see the heavy concentration on that. Why we are redlined in our district, why we are not treated as everybody else in the society, why our so-called rights are violated in the society. Why does that happen? That happens because we are the American indigenous people. I told you all before, the reason why we are treated the way we are as quote-unquote so-called black people, meaning people who were erased from the landscape of this society, the reason why that is because this is what immigrants do. Immigrants try to erase the indigenous people. The immigrants will try to erase the indigenous people, the impact of the indigenous people. Because keep in mind, like I said, our heritage goes back in the Americas. We are the only real Americans. We are the first American. In fact, I said before, the word American comes from the Mayan people. It does not come from Amerigo Vespucci. It comes from the Mayans. I know I repeated this before, but I got to reiterate this, because as I'm sitting up here with this feathered head crown on, which you could tell our women made these crowns. These didn't come from no Mongoloid Indians. And I'm going to tell you something. It's funny. It's funny how the so-called Mongoloid Indians, they didn't want to admit for the longest time that they came from someplace else. They didn't want to admit that they crossed the Bering Strait. They didn't want to admit that their people came over here as slaves. The Asians came over here as slaves, and they saw the American indigenous people, and they mixed in with a lot of our people, and they started adopting our culture. The Asians, they did that. You see, they did that. That's not their culture. If you go back, because if you travel, if you are people that travel to another place, you're going to bring your culture with you, or what you're going to do is absorb the culture of the people that you're coming in contact with. Now, when the Mongoloids crossed the Bering Straits, when the Asians came over here as slaves, and they've been coming over here as slaves, you can check this out, because they never talk about the Asians who were coming over here as slaves. They never talk about the Caucasians who was coming over here as indentured servants. They always focused on black people as the slaves. Why they never talk about that? Why doesn't American history ever talk about the American slavery of these other races of people? Why don't they talk about Asian slavery? There was Asian slavery here. That can be proven. That's factual. Asians were slaves in this country. Caucasians were indentured servants here. Some of our people were indentured servants. A little bit of everything. People working for people, and you had slavery amongst that. But to make it seem like all of our people were in bondage and that was it, and we were the only ones in bondage, that's a damn lie, man. That's a lie. Okay? People just rewriting history and lying, but we had to set the record straight. Again, this is why the American Republic is necessary. This is why we have to stand up as bronze men, bronze women of American descent, as of American indigenous descent. So when I say the term, when we refer to ourselves in the American Republic as Americanists, we referring to ourselves as Americanists, because that's another way of saying indigenous or ethnic American. We're not answering to African American. We're not answering to Negro no more. We're not answering to black no more. And if I got to lead the charge in doing that, so be it. So be it. Again, you people that's sitting here trying to align you so-called black Indians, and I hate that term too, black Indian, African American, I hate that. You people are sitting here trying to align yourself with the Mongoloid Indians, trying to sit up here and join these fake tribes. You're sitting here trying to join into these fake tribes and trying to align yourself with these Mongoloid Indians like they're the real Indians, and y'all just got some of their blood in y'all, and that's what somehow makes you authentic. No. It is us who are the American Indians, and they're the ones who came and culture vultured off of our indigenous heritage and mixed them with us. Get the narrative straight. You see, this is what happens when you got people who are forcing a fake history on a people who they have labeled black. Again, notice that they labeled our people black. Skin is not black. I told you that's a classification. Black is code word for indigenous. White is code word for immigrant. This society, the United States government, the corporation was set up for immigrants, i.e. your Mongoloid Indians, because the American government, the U.S. government, they know that the Mongoloid Indians are not really indigenous. They know that. They know a lot of them come from Asia. A lot of them came over as slaves, and a lot of them crossed the Bering Straits and mixed in with our people. They know who the American Indians are. And the American Indians was given the beast hell here in this country. A lot of our people was going out fighting. That's why they was calling us savages and whatnot. We earned the term savage Indians or savages because we was fighting every a lot of the way. It was over 500 what they call slave uprisings, over 500 plus slave uprisings or indigenous attacks of the indigenous people, the American indigenous people against the immigrants that came here. You see, we was fighting to keep our land because these people came here like they always do and trying to colonize us, trying to put us under, trying to subjugate us under them. And of course, they get a bunch of Sambo coons who are Indians, who were your sellout Indians, your sellout indigenous people, who became your Boule Sambo coons, who turn around and, participate in this lie of us being so-called African Americans and Negroes. And now when you say, don't refer to me as a black person because my skin is not black. You got to then force them because they trying to get you they trying to play that Vulcan mind game where they figure if they keep telling you that you black enough, they keep teaching you that you black, you're going to eventually accept it. And that's what happened with our people. I was just talking about the other night about how in Chicago, there was an area back in the early 20th century, the 1900s, 1910s, 1920s, there was a section in Chicago known as Bronzeville. Not to be confused with Brownsville. I come from Brownsville. But there's a section in Chicago, I don't know if it still got that name. It was known by our people. We named this section Bronzeville. Bronze. Like copper. Remember who the copper-colored people are. Who are the copper-colored people? We are. Who are the copper-colored races in the 1828 Merriam-Webster Dictionary, 1828, when they asked the definition of the word of American? They said this term pertained to the bronze copper-colored races. They didn't say the Mongoloid Indians. They said the bronze copper-colored races who were American, the Aboriginals, and how the Europeans came and found them and took over that name American. So who are the bronze copper-colored people? Hello? That's us. Yeah, we sitting up here answering to black. I told you how they slowly took us, the U.S. government slowly took us from American indigenous people, because at one point they was referring to us as Indian. They didn't call us Negroes. They didn't call us African. They didn't call us black. They called us Indians. And then the Indian was synonymous for Negro. Then they made Indian synonymous with colored, because these are the things we went through. So it tells you right in the 1828 Merriam-Webster Dictionary of who the real Americans are. We are the real Americans. That's why we catching hell. Just like all indigenous people of a land, the first people of the land, the civilized people of the land, they're going to catch hell when immigrants come. Look in South Africa. Look all over the place. Those Caucasians came into South Africa. Then they're going to turn around and try to tell the South Africans, oh, well, y'all came from someplace else. Y'all not really. This is our land. Y'all came from someplace. So they do that. The immigrants do that. They try to stake their claim on land. So it is important that we have an American Republic. Those of you who are interested in joining the American Republic, teaching our children that we are the American indigenous people, the truth that can be backed up. Go shout out to Dane Calloway. Shout out to Karemio. Shout out to the people who bringing out that truth. Shout out to them who bringing out our American indigenous status, man. Shout out to Sister Enra Vanzetta, Menkarayzz. Check out her channel, which is the Ethnic American channel. Sister Enra Vanzetta. Check out her channel. Subscribe to that. It's called the Ethnic American channel. Check her out. Check out Dane Coward. Check out everybody that I mentioned. These are very, very credible sources on our American indigenous status. Don't listen to these Sambo coons out here who done basically, got a few crumbs from the beast, got a few crumbs. And for these crumbs that they got, i.e. their tenures at these colleges to teach our people this lie about some African American studies. And I must be honest, I'm glad that this guy DeSantis in Florida, the governor, I'm glad that he's doing away with all that African American studies BS. I'm glad he's doing away with that bullshit. Excuse my language. I'm glad. We don't want to hear no more African American history, because what is African American history? Martin Luther King, Frederick Douglass, and whatever else they want to throw in these safe Negroes that they put out here and talk about. They don't talk about the real history of our people, the American indigenous history of our people. And I'm going to bring out all the names of those tribes who are gone and forgotten. We're going to reissue and bring their names out. Now, the whole thing is, I don't deal with the tribalism of what tribe you came from, what tribe. Look, man, we American indigenous people. We are the indigenous Americans. This is our culture. We don't need to know what tribe you come from, what section you come from, what's your heritage and your blood. Look, the white man didn't need that. He didn't need that. All he needed was $5 to say that he was an Indian and get on the damn doors rolls to be an Indian. The Caucasians didn't need to show no paperwork. Look how many Caucasians walking around acting like they Indians, sitting on these reservations, and y'all sitting up here asking them for membership in these so-called tribes that don't want you in there, because they'll sit up here and say, "Oh, you ain't Indian, you black, you African." They got the nerve to sit up here and take our culture and our heritage that can be proven and tell us that ain't your culture, that's our culture. You know what that is today? You know what that is today? That's Fat Joe sitting up here saying that Latinos and blacks, Latinos and black hip hop is 50-50. Yet you can't point to no credible Puerto Rican or Latino rapper today. Fat Joe ain't rhyming no more, and all them guys he had with Big Pun dead. So where's the 50-50 at? All the rappers you see are black, so-called black people, those indigenous American people. You see? So where's the so-called Latino influence in hip hop? There is none. There is none. Just like there's no Jamaican or West Indian influence in rap music. None. It's just people who seen something at one time they was clowning it, then they seen it become popular. Now they want to latch on to it and claim it because it's popular now. Because it got popular, because it got big. But never forget, and that's a slap in the face, that's a spit in the face to all the MCs, like people like Fat Joe set up here and jumped on their records and whatnot. He wouldn't even have had no presence if it wasn't for us. Hell, he worked for Jay-Z right now. But whatever. So much for the so-called Latinos 50-50 in hip-hop. No disrespect to the Latinos, but that ain't your culture, man. Rap music is ours, man. That's American indigenous music. Just like R&B, just like jazz, just like blues, all that's our music. Rock and roll, that's all American indigenous music. For the true Americans, us. We are the only real Americans in America. We're the only real, I want you to understand it. See, they have to make us African because they don't want to ever say that y'all the real American Indians. Y'all the real American indigenous people. Or as we refer to ourselves as Injuns or Injun, Nietzsche, all these names we made reference to. But why I say we're not even going about the tribal thing. See, because tribalism is what got us in this condition anyway. I'm not for let's look for our bloodline and find out who's of this tribe and who. Man, we ain't got to do all that. I told you, everybody that was born here in America got family going back to slavery and whatnot, going back past that. You American Indian, you American Indigenous, okay? You are. So it's not nothing special when some of you niggas sit up here and say, I got Indian in my family. We all do. We the Indians in our family. All of us. Stop acting like that's, you something special. Because remember they used to do that, the so-called black women do that. I got Indian in my family. I got Cherokee in my family. Because see, the reason why y'all do that is because y'all really don't want to be labeled as black people. You really don't want to be labeled as African Americans. You really don't want to be labeled as Negroes. And the reason why that is because in your soul, you don't really feel that way. You feel no connections with Africa. You feel no connection with that. And let me tell you something. I don't care how much you claim, that's because, brother, we've been separated from it. So that's a damn lie. That's a lie. Either you feel something or you don't. I don't care how long you've been disconnected from something. We've been here longer than 500 years. We've been here longer than the family. We've always been in America. And this is what we stand on as real Americans. And it makes you say, the Caucasians, when they come over here, whether they coming from Europe or wherever they coming from, and they just when they came over here in their migration, when they started coming over here, they wanted to forget all about their European heritage. A lot of them wanted to forget all about that. That's why when they came here, they just was like, I'm American. They didn't want to say they German or Irish or Polish. They'll say German, American, Irishman. Then after a while, they just start dealing away with it because really, real talk, they're really ashamed of their European heritage. Because how is it that y'all white people are sitting here, all these people sitting here calling themselves American, knowing damn well they're not American? They are where you come from. You are where you come from. If your heritage is German, Irish, French, Italian, whatever, or Chinese, Japanese, or whatever, then that's what you are. You're not American. And that goes for you Mongoloid Indians. You go back to the cross to Mongolia. You go back toward the Asian societies and whatnot. That's where you come from. You are not American. The only real Americans are so-called black people. Just like that. I said it, and I stand on it. The only real Americans, I'm not talking about you Johnny-come-latelys that came over from Africa. I'm talking about the real, and even a lot of the Africans are really Americans, but that's another thing. I'm not going to get all off into that. They really ancient Americans because I told you before, the American indigenous people have a certain look to them. The afros, the braids, that's American indigenous hair and culture. Afros and braids, whether you see it in ancient Egypt, whether you see it around the world, that's all still linked to America. Because the first civilizations were built in America. Don't let them tell you this lie that there's civilizations older than than American civilization, the Olmecs, the Aztec, and all. Our people was always here in the Americas, and we traveled out of America to other parts of the world. That's the real thing. That's the real heritage. That's the real account. You see, you got to be very careful with this history, because a lot of times, you know, like I said, shout out to Dane Calloway, shout out to Karimio, shout out to Sister Enra Vanzetta and all the people who are bringing out our American indigenous status, and people will say, well, you know, Nuben, why you got on the Indian thing? I told you, I've always acknowledged, I didn't put it forward. I was always pushing Amen, which is what we still are as a race. I always pushed that we wasn't African. I was never red, black, and green, never. I was always red, blue, and gold, or red, blue, and yellow, which is really the American indigenous colors. You see it in our flag over here, the American indigenous flag, or the American Republic flag. And like I said, this is a heritage community. This is a heritage-based, a cultural-based community for bronze people, for bronze-skinned people. This ain't for black people. This ain't for people who consider themselves to be black or African-American or Negro or whatever. This ain't for you. This is for the people who acknowledge their true heritage as the bronze, copper-colored people, men and women. This is a community for all people to grow in truth, in reality, and in a constant and continuous future of greatness. Because you can't be a great people if you live in a lie. If you live in a lie, you letting people tell you came from Africa on slave ships, and that's not the truth. And I'm going to be honest with you. If that was really real, I would say, okay, we African. If that was real, I would acknowledge it. I would cop to the African thing. I don't have nothing against the history, and reality is reality. But you're not going to sit here and do is lie to our people after we've been lied to for over 400 years and whatnot. Well, not even that long. They ain't start really lying until maybe about 150 years ago. That's when they start trying to change the narrative, because prior to that, if you look on all those old products, they show you the face of the Indians, and they got descriptions of how the Indians look, or the indigenous people with the feathered head crown, the people with the coarse hair and the bronze copper colored skin. Coarse hair meaning the woolly hair. You see, stop thinking Mongoloid Indians got all that straight hair. No, that's the Asian influence, man. Stop thinking that these people, the Indians, got straight hair. No, the Indians got braids and afros. The Olmecs got braids and afros and thick lips and broad noses. That's who we are. Stop trying to mix match our heritage. Stop trying to take, because again, you notice that whenever they find something great about our people, and you can clearly see these are bronze people. Whenever you see the afros, the braids, the thick lips, the broad nose, and all that, if it's something great, if it's in Egypt, if it's in ancient America, see, they not really black. But if we showed the same image and we said, this came from Africa, yeah, those are black people. If we said African, these are black people. You see, as long as you were primitive and you tribal and you walking around butt ass naked with your ass out and your breasts out and you walking around and you acknowledge that, okay, that's fine. That's fine. But the minute you start showing, we built this, we built that. Y'all didn't do that. See, it was influence of other people. That's all a bunch of subliminal, submissive programming from these people, from degenerates who promote these lies. We have to combat these lies with the truth. And trust me, when I tell you, a lot of people who are out here pushing these lies, ain't all pale-skinned people. I told you that. Or it ain't just pale-skinned people pushing these lies. Because you got some pale-skinned people that'll tell you the truth. Can't forget about the high. All right? Good marijuana. All right? And I want to make this clear. I wish people would stop trying to stigmatize or create this narrative that if you smoke marijuana, that this is some kind of drug and that, you under the influence, you talking out of your head and you talking crazy. No, this is actually relaxing. And, this is no more, like I said, tobacco as it is now being sold with all the drugs and chemicals in it is way worse for our people than this, which is natural. You see, this was a way of relaxing and whatnot. Our people was the first ones to smoke tobacco and marijuana leaves. We were the first ones to harvest and grow that in the Americas. We were. How is it that we're able to harvest and grow on the land and build on the land if we African in America? That don't even make sense. How is it that a bunch of foreigners, which is what you Caucasians are, a bunch of foreigners, a bunch of immigrants, how is it that you're able to go and get people from a whole nother continent to come here and work and whatnot? You're going to bring foreigners, you foreigners bringing foreigners to another country. Come on, man. Stop it. Stop it. Our people were already here. So like I said, I'm repping that today. Repping the Indians basketball jersey, which is going to be on sale. We're going to have that from the Underlord company. We have a lot of good jerseys and things on sale. It's going to start being sold to the public. You know, from our company, from our Underlord company. You see, we need to, you know, get on to that. Now I want to address this Tyrie Nichol'S thing, the guy Tyrie Nichol'S, and the demonization of these black police officers, these so-called black police officers. Let me tell you something. I hope everybody's not falling for the banana in the tailpipe of trying to demonize these guys. Am I saying that these guys, I'm not sticking up for these police officers that killed this young man, took his life? No, I'm not. No, I'm not. I'm not sticking up for them at all. They are foul, just like their Caucasian counterparts who do the same foul things. They're just as foul as they are. They're just as degenerate as their Caucasian counterparts who put on these uniforms and act like they're here to protect and serve when they're actually here to abuse and neglect people, abuse and take advantage of people. You see, that's what they're here to do, to violate and abuse people. They're not here to protect and serve a lot of them. And again, I'm not saying all police. Some police, like I said, are good. They're here to work, do their jobs, and they're here to protect and serve. They actually put on the badge and the uniform, and they honor do that. They're here to help. Because again, nothing's ever totally 100% bad. You got very good police officers, white, black, and everything in between. And then you got a bunch of degenerates. You got a bunch of degenerates, black, white, and everything in between, just like in life, who screw up things, who go up here and put the uniform on. These are a bunch of cowardly, weak nobodies who were never nobody until they put a damn uniform on. That's when they felt empowered. And this is what you see today. People who are nobodies trying to be somebody when they put on a badge and a gun. But see, if you have to find your self-esteem in a badge and a gun, then you don't need to carry a badge and a gun. You should have your self-esteem in check way before you get to this hole, before you get a badge and a gun. You see, way before you get a badge and a gun, you should have your self-esteem in check. Okay? You should have that in check. So if you don't, then what does that say? That you're going to go out here and you're going to do what these 5 maniacs did, these degenerates. You're going to do like what they white counterparts do. Because notice how they demonizing the black cops. Really what the narrative is, see, these niggers are not, they're not good enough to be police officers. See, they had to scrape the bottom of the barrel and hire them as if they was up on the high totem pole hiring these white ones. You're dealing with a lot of people who are basically ignorant, who are basically hateful, who angry, who mad about whatever, who got an inferiority complex. And so when they join the police department, it shoots up their, in their mind, it shoots up their status, it shoots up their self-esteem to feel as though they have some sort of power and that they have some backup. You know what that says? What that really says? You got a bunch of cowards. You got a bunch of cowards who put on those badges and guns. I'm not talking about the good people that do. I'm talking about the cowards. And you good people who are calling yourself good police officers, you need to out these bad ones. Because I told you they're going to make your jobs harder. Because I told you it's going to come a time in this country where people are going to start to rebel. They're going to get tired of these police brutalizing people. They're going to get tired of people. And you can only push people but for so long, and they're going to push back. I'm warning you. And nobody, and when that time comes, they're not going to care whether you a good cop, whether you a bad cop, whether you a black cop, a white cop, or whatever race cop you are. They just going to see a blue uniform, and people are going to take it out on you. So you should not want these bad police officers standing in alignment with you, because they make your jobs harder. They make you look bad. You see, you got the police departments in this country are corrupt as hell, just like the judicial system is. It is what it is. You get all these people who getting violated like that, these people who complain like that. That's not coincidental. Again, you're trying to ignore that, and people will say, "Oh, that's just the way." No, it ain't just the way things are. But I want to encourage all so-called black men and American indigenous men, if you don't have a criminal record, what you need to do is go 10 at a time, 15 at a time, 20 at a time, go and join the police department. Go and join your local police departments. Don't let these, what these police did, these black cops did, don't let them turn you against them, because notice how they trying to demonize them. Now these Caucasian racists, they trying to make police brutality and they're trying to make these black cops the new face of police brutality. You see how fast they prosecuted them? You see how fast they did that? You see how fast they were putting them in jail? Now, if it was white cops, oh, we gotta look at the body cam. Oh, we got to look over the evidence. Oh, we got to go over here. We got to go over here to this district. We got to go over here. And the commander has to, and we're reviewing the tapes and we're seeing before we make it. And then they basically stall and keep the white cops around, take them off the street for a little while, put them on desk duty. Meanwhile, he done murdered people. Meanwhile, he done, created havoc. And now, look at what you got. Now the city got to be paying out millions of dollars to these people. People sitting around there lost their loved ones. How do you think people feel? Forget the black and white thing. How do you think people feel about losing their children, losing their loved ones, losing their fathers to some cop who wanted to pull his gun, some cops who wanted to, teach somebody a lesson or want to sit up here and put guns in people's face? How do you think those people feel? How would you police officers feel if this happened to you? If you somehow went home one day, or you was going to the supermarket, you was going out in the world, and somebody walked up on you and blew your brains out because you a cop. They looked at you, that they might have recognized you from somewhere. They walked up on you when you trying to live your regular life. How you feel about being violated? See, because what comes around goes around. I'm telling you, people are going to start doing that. Because when people are fed up, when people feel like they ain't got nothing to lose, that's the most dangerous people. I don't care how many guns you got. I don't care how many bombs you got. I don't care how much tactical equipment you got. You're not going to be able to stop that. You're opening up a can of worms in this society that you're not going to be able to stop. People are tired. People are tired of being abused. People are tired of losing their loved ones. People are tired of crying while these officers are sitting around riding their car like nothing happened and going about their life. That shit will not stand. It will not stand. Just letting you know. People, I'm not the only one thinking like this. A lot of people of different races and things like that that's thinking like that. They tired. People don't like to be living under an oppressive system. They don't like it. And the people that pass these laws, that co-sign this stuff, the district attorneys and all these people that get appointed to these positions to hire these people, see, they not worried about it because they know the police ain't pulling them over. See, the people that pass these laws, they're not regular people out in the public like that because they ain't worried about the police pulling them over. They're not worried about the police bothering them. They're not worried about that. Some people will say, oh, well, they don't do it to white people. Yes, a lot. Sometimes they do. Sometimes the white people get it too. You see? But see, a lot of times these black cops, they thought they had a white past. They thought they could abuse it and they would get away with it because, but at the end of the day, you black police officers must know your Caucasian counterparts. They really don't want you having that job. They don't feel you should have a badge and a gun. They feel you should be the perp in jail, that they should be arrested and abusing. That's how they feel. You know what you should say, though? You should take those jobs because the tax people pay for those people. My tax dollars, I pay a lot of taxes. My tax dollars pay for police. Your tax dollars pay for that. So you black men should get some of that tax money. Don't be like your white counterparts, the bad ones. I'm not saying all white cops are bad. I'm talking about the bad ones. Don't be like them. You see, because those people, when you see like karma and judgment are real and the people that do things like that, take people's lives, kill children, things like that, you're going to have that same, over somewhere down the line, that same pain, that same trauma that you caused on somebody else to take their children, take their father, take their mother, is going to come back to you in some way, shape, or form, because whatever you put out, whatever hurt, harm, and destruction you put out, it will eventually revisit you. And it's going to hurt you real bad. Let me see what else I wanted to talk on. Because I talked about a lot of things. Hit that link at the bottom, those of you who want to join the American Republic. For the bronze men and bronze women who want to join the American Republic. All right. All right. I was going to do a logical assessment of what I teach. Speaking on MENTELLECT, again, MENTELLECT hasn't gone anywhere. It's still about MENTELLECT. MENTELLECT is an ideology amongst the American indigenous people. MENTELLECT is an ideology amongst the American indigenous people. It's how we think. We think logically. We think rationally. It is simply that. Everything I've been talking about, everything I've been covering over the last, since 2012, since I've been on the radio, going on, 10, 12 years now since I've been on the radio, Blog Talk, by the way, MENTELLECT Radio. Check us out tonight at 10:30. And American Republic Radio, which I do every Sunday night at 10:30. All my radio broadcasts, check out American Republic Radio on 10:30 on Sundays, and MENTELLECT Radio Monday through Saturday on Blog Talk. All of our teaching is governed, and our way of thinking is governed by MENTELLECT. See, I don't have a doctrine. We don't do doctrines. We don't do beliefs and doctrines. We do logical and rational thinking. Logical and rational sense. We can't even call it common sense anymore because, again, sense and sensory is not common. You got a lot of people out here who are living illogical ways of lives. They think illogically. They think irrationally. We're not with that. You see, we as bronze men and women in this community in the American Republic, we are always thinking logically and rationally in everything that we do. And all of our presentation of what we do in life. So therefore, this is what, MENTELLECT encompasses. MENTELLECT is an ideology, a way of thought. It is not a organization. It's not a community. There's no Republican MENTELLECT. It's just MENTELLECT, just an ideology. That's it. It's just an ideology. It's the way we think logically and rationally. And I'm going to say something for a lot of these people up here that was pushing, it's logical and rational thinking. Listen, these are all copycats. These are all copycats. If you see people bigging up the 144,000 and linking it with the word almond, you see people talking about thinking logically and rationally and using intelligence, that all comes from Nuben Menkarayzz. Nobody talked like that until I started teaching this in 2012 about thinking logically and rationally and throwing belief away, throwing away the theories and philosophies of the beast, throwing away all these Caucasian philosophies and beliefs, getting rid of these religions and things like that amongst our people. For the people that want to follow religion, that's fine, but we ain't going that way because logically and rationally, religion, God, and the devil don't make no sense. What does make sense is a higher race of people, an advanced race of people who are going to logically and rationally uplift themselves as a collective. That's who we are, and that's who we always were. That's why I teach that we're the almond race and not part of the human race. I talked about that in another video. You can go back to the old video. I'm not going to get into that. I want to touch on some of this other stuff. Let me see. So that was my logical assessment of what we teach. Because, again, I don't do spookism. I don't do crazy stuff, All right. I'm going to talk about this American thing. Now, people are being called Americans in this society. People who are immigrants in this society are being called Americans. You see, back in the 1828 Merriam-Webster dictionary definition of an American, they're describing us as American. And they're describing the Caucasians, the Europeans who came later, as the ones who took on that name. Now, what happened to the copper-colored people who are described in that 1828 Merriam-Webster dictionary? What happened to the copper-colored people who were described in the 1828 Merriam-Webster dictionary of American? The first people who were called American. What happened to them? They're still here. They're still here, and they're falsely being called black. They're falsely being labeled black because black is code word for indigenous, just like white is code word for immigrant. You do know you got black people, so-called black people from the Middle East that come over here into America. Matter of fact, my brother was in a cab the other day and he was talking to some Sudanese guy, right? Guy from Sudan. And he just so happened to ask the guy, what did you classify it on and your license on your license on, you know, what do you classify it as, you know, here in America and your license and things like that? He said, I'm classified as white. He said they don't classify him as black. He's classified as white. So that just go now. He's not Caucasian. He's dark as us, and he got woolly hair. But the people in the East that come over here, that he's Sudanese, they classify him as white. They classify all people in the Middle East as white. I don't care if your skin dark. You classified as white because I told you before, white has nothing to do with a color. White is a status, a immigrant status. We the only ones as indigenous Americans, we the only ones who can't classify as white because we're not immigrant. Now here's the thing. If we were really from Africa, if we were really so-called quote-unquote African Americans, if we were really immigrants that came over into America, like they lie and say, then why don't we have the same? Why don't we have white status? Because I proved to you white status has nothing to do with being Caucasian. The Asians got white status, your Latinos got white status, and your Africans from the East, and a lot of your Africans, period, depending on what region they in, when they come to America, they got white status. Muhammad Ali told this story one time, and this perplexed him. He was trying to get something to eat, and this is someplace in Tennessee or down south, somewhere he was trying to get something to eat, Muhammad Ali, and he said, y'all can look up that interview, he said that he tried to go in and get something to eat, and they wouldn't serve him. They said, no blacks allowed, no Negroes allowed, whatever, right? But then some Africans, like the tribal-looking Africans, came over, and they went in there to go get something. He said he saw them. They had their African stuff on. They said, oh, they African. They okay, let them in. You follow what I'm saying? So, at the heart of this thing, this is about indigenous people versus immigrants. That's what black and white is. Indigenous versus immigrants. The immigrants are white. The indigenous are black. But we're not taking on the black terminology no more. We're going forward to who we really are as American indigenous people. We need to raise our children in this. We need to raise our people up in this. This is the only community where our people can really grow in reality and in righteousness. Why do I say that? Because all these other, I'm going to just be honest with you, I'm going to keep it all the way 1,000 with you. All these other groups out here, all these so-called black groups out here, they still pushing the African narrative. They still pushing we came from Africa on slave ship narrative, or we've been here for 400 years, 500 years. No, man. Anybody's telling you that they full of crap, man. We've been here since we the first people to inhabit America as the Mayans. Go look that up. The Mayans are bronze, copper-colored people, so-called black people. The Mayans and the Aztec were the first people to come into America. They still find Mayan ruins in Georgia, Louisiana, all up and down. And what happened was the Mayan nations and the Aztec came over. They were so huge when they came over from South and Central America into the North America, they started separating into tribes. And they took this indigenous culture because they was wearing the feathered head crown. All you got to do is look at the Mayans. All you got to do is look at the Aztec. And they was wearing these feathered head crowns back then. Some was wearing 3 or 4 feathers, but as time went on, our people started wearing these feathered head crowns more and more. And just to be honest with you, it appears that these feathered head crowns were really just to be head coverings, because North America is cold. So a lot of people was wearing them more like head coverings. You see, like you seen people wearing the coon skin caps and the beaver caps and whatnot. We was the first ones doing that, man. We was catching animals and skinning them and cutting them open and taking their fur. Well, our people was the first ones wearing fur and things like that. We was in North America, so we had to stay warm. So we was the first ones putting on furs and feathers and just basically wearing things on women, making things on women with seamstresses. The men were like carpenters and all this other stuff. So women would make stuff like this. They would make clothes. They would harvest cotton. We was doing this already before the Caucasians came here. We was doing this already. We was already harvesting cotton. That's why they wanted us in the cotton field. We were already harvesting food, not just cotton, but food. They used us to grow on them because they didn't know how to grow anything. They used us to grow even the Yamasi guys, one of the Yamasi leaders guys today, they'll say how they helped the Caucasians when they came into the southern regions. They didn't know how to farm. They didn't know how to really fish. They didn't know how to do anything because they don't come from an agrarian society. Europeans don't come from an agrarian society. So meaning a society or a culture that grows. That's agricultural society. Our people come from that. That's why some of the first colleges we had were agricultural colleges, because we knew how to do that. How we knew how to grow cotton and grow, because we wasn't just picking it, we was growing it. They didn't know how to grow. How they didn't just choose us because we was picking. Anybody could do that. I told you, we were growing it, growing the food and everything else. That's why we had a lot of people were agriculturalists. We knew how to grow food because we was always here doing it. And they just came over, learned from us, set up here and promised us all these things. We helped them get the land going. The government promised us all these things. And all the treaties that were broken with our people. Most of the treaties that were broken was the treaties where they were supposed to leave us alone and give us land, leave us alone in exchange for helping them to grow on the land, stuff like that. And as soon as we helped them do that in the indentured servitude state, then they turn around, oh, you niggas ain't getting nothing. The Denmark VC decision's a good example of this. Denmark VC could not have been a slave. Notice how they call Denmark VC. How many of y'all familiar with the Denmark VC case? Denmark VC was an indentured servant. He wasn't a slave, because if he was a slave, what slave goes to court? Slaves can't go to court. They just meant to serve their master. So if he was able to go to court, that means that he wasn't really seen as a slave. He's more seen as a indentured servant who was doing labor for these Caucasians he worked for. That's when they came out with that thing. They said that a white man does not have to, I forget how they put it, he does not have to acknowledge any rights of any colored people or Negroes or whatever. They don't have to acknowledge. In other words, what they were saying wasn't that law. The immigrants who the indigenous people had the land taken from them and given to the immigrants. They took our land from us and gave it to them, forced us off our lands, right? They said, oh, you don't have to get basically acknowledge any rights of any indigenous people. That's what Denmark VC was. That was just a message saying they don't have to acknowledge the rights of the American indigenous people here, because Denmark VC was an American Indian. He was American indigenous. He was not an African. Please stop this African American nonsense. That's all lies. Don't fall for it just because you hear. They make sure they double down on this in the news. Oh, this African American over here, or the African American. Notice for the last 5-6 years, ever since we started talking about our American indigenous status and disproving this whole thing that we came over from Africa on slave ships, all of a sudden they started doubling back down on African American, Black Panther come out, all this other stuff. And in Black Panther 2, they had the so-called Latinos claiming Mesoamerican heritage, which is false. Because all the Mesoamericans were bronze, copper-colored people, so-called black. That's where the American Indians come from, where American indigenous people come out of. Notice they don't make that connection with the Mongoloid Indians, the ones who came over and took on our culture. Because, again, this is nothing but culture vulturing. And then they turn around, when we were claiming our American indigenous status of culture, then they turn around and say, oh, y'all culture vulturing us. They say, oh, you culture vulturing us. They try to turn around after they steal from us. That'll be the same thing. It'll be the same narrative if y'all sit up here and keep with this, oh, Latinos is 50-50 hip hop and whatnot with black people. Give it another 5 or 10 years. Next thing you know, nah, y'all niggas didn't have nothing to do with hip hop. We started hip hop. That's what they did with the American Indian thing. That's what they did with the American indigenous culture. Okay? That's what they did with that. And they love taking our heritage and culture. They sit up here and call Elvis Presley the king of rock when you know damn well he was copying the black man. They showed you the black man that he was copying. Elvis Presley copied this black man verbatim, singing his music, but then they turn around and call him the king of rock and roll. Just like they ready to call Eminem the GOAT of hip hop. Y'all so-called black people who do that, y'all hand over y'all culture too easily, man. A lot of you rappers are co-signing just like a lot of people in music, but that's, you know. But these people that are born here in America are not United States. They're not Americans. Caucasians are not Americans. They're U.S.-born citizens. That's the proper terminology for all immigrants. They are U.S.-born citizens. They are not American. American is the indigenous people. Again, look at the 1828 Merriam-Webster Dictionary of what an American is. That lets you know who the real Americans are. That's us. That's us, only us. Everybody else came from someplace else. They are not Americans. They are U.S.-born citizens. Caucasians, Asians, East Indians, all Arabs, all the people that come over here that were born over here, they are U.S.-born, United States-born citizens. We are different from them. We are American indigenous people born here in the Americas. That's the difference. All right. Let's see. Why would black people prevent it from wearing why would black people prevent it from wearing their natural hair in corporate America? Afros, braids, and things like that was prevented because, and they had the so-called black men put on the wigs and perm their hair. And the black man had to cut his hair down to it was bald, or he had no hair, or he had to perm out his hair too, because they want you to act like you see, because afros and braids is American indigenous. That's why these Caucasians don't like seeing our natural hair, because it reminds them of who the American indigenous people are. See, if we got perms and cut our hair and we're acting like them, then that means, okay, well, we can control these people. We tell them how we want their hair to look. You know, they got to look like they got to have the same kind of hair as the immigrants, the straight hair, the dog fur. No. Be proud of your American indigenous hair. American indigenous hair is afros, it's braids, it's woolly hair. That's our hair. All right. I already talked about why these black conscious leaders are not going to tell us that we are ethnic Americans. They know the truth, man. They know the truth. They're not going to tell you the truth because they're getting paid off. They're getting paid off. They're getting paid off to lie to our people and tell that we come from Africa, just like Alex Haley got paid off. You know, these people all these people are talking this we African and Pan-Africanism or AK scam Africanism and we black and we came with one slave shit. Don't listen to these people. They're a bunch of liars, and they're getting paid off by the Caucasian elites to teach this lie to our people. This is a history. This is real. This is real. History class 101, the real history class, or what I like to refer to it as the real real accounts, the real accounts of the real events that took place. You see, real events. I don't like to use the word history because history sounds so much like his story. So you got people either lying on one side or the other. No, we're dealing with actual facts and events. But that's pretty much it. I don't spoke on everything I want to speak on. If you like these nice jerseys and shirts and stuff like that, we're going to start having a link down there if you want to cop one of these nice Indian jerseys and whatnot from our Underlord company. If you want to cop, a lot of this stuff, buy this stuff. We got a lot of this stuff coming and whatnot. We need to, put our Indigenous American heritage and culture up for display. And we're doing that. Huh? Oh, my name is on the back. I don't have the Underlord. I got my last name on the back. You get your the Underlord is on the back with the number as well. I'm not gonna get up and show it because it's too much. But it's really nice. It's back in the front. But on the mine is personalized. But on everybody else's have Underlord, and then you have the Indians and whatnot, because we're gonna have a lot of different jerseys coming out. Be able to hit the link and get it. And that's pretty much about it. Again, subscribe to the Ethnic American channel with Sister Enra Vanzetta. Mentangela, subscribe to her channel. Subscribe to High and Mighty Talk. Subscribe to this channel. Share the link. Share the link. All right. Got a question? What's the question?
Does reality equal life?
Does reality equal life? Yes, it does. Yes, it does. You see, the people who are living a lie, they're not really living. You see, reality does equal real life because, again, life is real. You got people here who are living a lie. Those are people not really living. Those people are living in fear because those people constantly have to deal with the fact that they're going to be exposed. They're going to be exposed as liars. They're going to be exposed as people who are not forthcoming or forthright with the truth. Again, the truth is coming out. Reality is coming out. True reality is coming out right now. We got any other ones?
Why is double C American and EN is out?
Why is double Z American? Double Z is American. That goes back. The double Z or the use of the letter Z goes back to the Mayan culture. It goes back to the Aztec culture. You hear the pronunciation of Z and a lot of the words and whatnot. Like, for example, Montezuma. You got a lot of these all bronze people. You got the double Z used in a lot of the American Indigenous language. The Z sound or what that symbol looks like of Z. It's funny also, the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, he used the double Z in the name Shabazz when he talked about the tribe of Shabazz. And I said that the tribe of Shabazz is really an American Indigenous tribe or a so-called Indigenous American tribe. He just used the term Shabazz because Shabazz is not even an Arabic name. Shabauz or Shabazz, it translates literally, I forget the language it was translated to, I think Persian, to King Falcon. But the double Z's have always been connected to the Americans. It's always been. And the N, the Mayans, the Olmen, or what they call it, Olmec, the EN, has always been connected. Just like the name Amen has always been connected to America. Why do you think the Caucasians use the word amendments for their laws? Amendments. Why don't they use commandments? Because they claim this is a Judeo-Christian society. So in a Judeo-Christian society that goes by the Bible laws are supposed to be commandments. So why are they not called the commandments? Why are they called amendments? Where did they get that from? They got that from us. Everything they do in this society, from the Confederation of governments, the Confederation of tribes, which became states and governors, that come from us. The acknowledgement of amendments as law over this land, that's from us. All right? Anybody else?
And why is EN common?
Why is Amen with EN? The word EN is another way of saying in or Lord. That goes back into the ancient world where the word EN meant Lord or law and order, Lord and master. Lord, those who set law and order, EN. N. Go back to Enki, Enlil, the word EN. That's even in the Americas. That was spread all over the planet, the word EN. N. Anybody else?
Okay. Are Haitians bronze, copper-colored Americans or African descended?
Are Haitians? Some Haitians are of copper-colored descent. You have some Africans. Come on, you could look at our people and tell who the who are the indigenous American people are, and who the Africans are. The Africans have a very tribal look to them. Very tribal look. You can tell who the Africans are. You know who the American indigenous people are. That's why I said a lot of people who are in Africa, who have afros and braids and have a certain sheen to their skin, they're not African. Those are Americans who went into Africa. See, our people left out of America and went into these other places, not the other way around. They like to lie and say people came from Africa and got into these places. So a lot of Haitians are American indigenous, but some of them got mixed in with African as well. That's how a lot of that so-called African voodoo stuff got over. Which again, even that's not even really African. A lot of that's indigenous, that voodoo stuff and whatnot. But again, that's another subject, another time, because I'm about to close it out. Anybody else? All right. If there's nothing else, again, subscribe to this High and Mighty Talks and everything else. Subscribe to our Ethnic American channel. And also tonight, MENTELLECT Radio 1030 on Blog Talk. We're going to close out in the name of Amen, by the power of Amen. In Amen we trust, and Amen we think, and in Amen we continue forward forever. We out.